Good morning and welcome to Atomo Diagnostics presentation at the NWR virtual conference. Atomo is a specialist medical device company supplying unique integrated rapid diagnostic tests, or RDTs, to the global diagnostic market. The company has supply agreements in place for tests targeting infectious diseases, including COVID, viral versus bacterial differentiation, and female health. The company, which is backed by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's Global Health Investment Fund, has exposure to several large target markets. It recently received approval from Australia's TGA for its COVID-19 rapid antigen test. Atomo achieved a number of material new COVID-19 commercial and regulatory milestones during the September quarter this year and became cash flow positive at the operating activity level over the 3-month period. Today from Atomo, we have John Kelly and Will Suter. John's the Managing Director. For more than 20 years, he's championed the cause of reimagining medical devices to enhance their usability and performance. Before founding Atomo Diagnostics in 2010, John was COO at the ASX listed, now NASDAQ listed Unilife Corporation, where he led the Unifield development team. Guys, I'll hand it over to you, but before doing so, if we did have any questions, which we highly encourage, please do so via the Q&A box down the bottom. But I'll hand it over to you guys to get started. Thanks very much.
Yeah, no, thank you for the opportunity to talk. Atomo is as you said, a medical device expert in usability, particularly with regard to point of care and consumer testing. And it's a segment of the market that obviously with the pandemic is undergoing huge growth and huge transformation, particularly in Europe and North America. And those changes play very much into our skill set in terms of the products and services that we offer. We're headquartered in Australia, listed on the ASX in April, but we have global operations and a number of our executives are based overseas, as are most of our manufacturing capabilities. And we have more than 90% of our revenue derived from export contracts, initially in Europe, but increasingly in North America. Our products are regulatory approved in various global jurisdictions across a number of different product applications. And we're now generating growth and revenue from a number of different segments, and that gives us an increasingly diverse and robust revenue base. We're showing very strong growth at the moment. We expect that growth to continue for the medium term at least, and we're very bullish about the prospects of the business.
Just a quick corporate snapshot. As John said, we listed in April. It's been a lot of trading. We have now more than 9,000 shareholders, so there's a lot of interest in the company, and it's settled down in the sort of mid-30s, and at that price range, that gives us a market cap just short of $200 million. We use the funds from the IPO to repay debt. So at the end of September, we had $26.5 million in cash and no debt, and a very strong institutional register and a very strong board and management team. Just to quickly recap on the financials. So FY20 was a great year for the company. We did nearly 10 times our FY19 revenue, reaching a customer revenues of 5.4 million for the year. Also significant improvement in our margins as we continue to scale up, and that flowed through to our underlying EBITDA. That was about half of the loss was about half of the prior year, at just over $2 million, and so in good shape and heading towards profitability. And we saw that start to flow through in the first quarterly report for the FY21 year, where we cleared over $3 million in cash from customers. And as Simon mentioned in the introduction, we were cash flow positive at the operating level, but importantly continued to do what we said we would do at the IPO, which is invest in our manufacturing capability and expansion, with over $1 million spent during the quarter on that particular activity. So that's about supporting that growth that John's described and puts us in good shape heading into the second half of the year.
For those of you that are new to the business, really the product concept is quite simple in its conception, at least. The replacement of bits in a box chemistry set technologies with a much more consumer-friendly, bespoke, integrated device that simplifies usability, transforms the user experience and reduces errors. And in doing that, it opens up point of care and consumer test markets that were really not viable with the bits in a box kit. So before Atomo came along, hundreds of millions of tests for many different types of blood-based analytes were and are deployed on that sort of bits and box format. And Atomo is now one at a time essentially replacing those chemistry set kits with a bespoke best-in-class device that really is transformative. Our customers are very keen on the device. We think it's highly disruptive, and really there's no limit to the amount of that market that we can capture, and that's a multi-billion-dollar market that's long in the tooth in terms of its technology and ripe for disruption. This is probably the most important slide in the whole presentation, because I think if you're going to disrupt an established clinical market, you really need to get the market excited, and I think we've proven that we've done that. Our customers are glowing in their praise for the product, and access is now increasingly in demand, and we're very excited about the ability to expand capacity with the use of IPO proceeds so that we can deliver on that. We listed in April. We've been very busy since listing. We've delivered, I believe, what we've said we would deliver in this first period, and some additional deliverables on top. We sold nearly 2 million units to our French partner for COVID, and that's primarily been sold to the French Ministry of Defense and the French government, as well as increasingly in pharmacy settings in France through a distribution agreement they have with McKesson. We then followed that up with a very sizable agreement for North America. That's a 2 million unit take-or-pay contract for North America. That take-or-pay is committed regardless of whether Access Bio get FDA approval, although that said, they are very confident that FDA approval is coming shortly. And that's a co-branding arrangement. It's a revenue share. It's the best deal we've been able to secure to date, and I think it shows that increasing ability for us to get favorable terms for our platforms. The company was admitted to the All Ordinaries. We got TGA approval here for our antibody test, and then more recently our antigen test. And we're now in the process of rolling those out, and we do expect to be able to report material revenues in the next quarter from that rollout. Access Bio have ordered the first 2 containers of our devices to get ready for their US launch, which they hope will be later in the year. And we've increased our capacity, more than doubled it in the last 6 months to be able to meet the demand that we're seeing, and we continue to invest out through our infrastructure to get to a doubling again by 30 June of next year, and that gives us more than 20 million per annum capitalized production, and we believe that will see us not indefinitely, but certainly through the rest of calendar year 21. In terms of milestones, we hope to deliver as we push through FY21. We obviously, I mentioned, are looking to launch in Australia. We're supporting Access Bio as they launch in North America. We've implemented some planning for setting up of a US business, and most of our opportunities are there, not just in the current customer base, but in the expansion of OEM contracts. We're looking to build out that business capability in the US and bring in some technical capability. And we're also evaluating a North American operational footprint to support US customers that want a more localized supply chain. We are continuing to push through the large pipeline of OEM opportunities that we have. We've really been constrained by capacity and resources over the last 18 months. We have a number of very valuable OEM contracts in the areas of women's health and screening for antimicrobial resistance to avoid overprescription of antibiotics. And both those products are launched in Europe with US approval pending. But we've really only scratched the surface on OEM contracts. We believe there's 10 to 15 other applications that we could capture on our platform, and we're now looking to really aggressively push that out. We've had a lot of success with our HIV self-test. It's one of the few that has been approved by World Health. We've proven that we can take products to market and successfully win market share, successfully engage with partners like Mylan, who are our exclusive distributor in more than 100 countries. And we're now looking to cherry pick some other high value applications and bring some further Atomo products to market as a finished product where we hold the regulatory approval. And to support that expanding customer base and product revenue pipeline, we're close to launching a number of digital upgrades, a clip-in low-cost reader for quantification of results in point of care and home settings, as well as an app to support home use and self-test. And as I mentioned previously, continued investment into expansion of capacity. One thing I think that's not maybe fully evident to shareholders in Australia is the level of disruption and transformation that the healthcare market is undergoing, particularly in the US. The existing systems have broken down in many areas, and there's now an accelerated and permanent transition to home-based health. And that's driven by significant over-the-counter consumer market growth, as well as the emergence of a telehealth delivery model that really brings a doctor into a home. And that'll allows for home testing. To be able to do that, you need easy to use, reliable diagnostics, and our diagnostic devices are best in class. Added to this new eHealth upgrade that we're bringing through, we're very confident that we can become a preferred diagnostic platform for telehealth delivery. Even in Australia, which is typically quite late to the party with new technical innovations in healthcare delivery, Minister Hunt announced that telehealth was here to stay and reimbursable. So it is a segment that's now growing rapidly, and our technology offering is ideally suited to capitalize on that. We have on the left a low-cost digital reader that's being developed at the moment and validated. We'll be looking to launch it next year. It allows a customer to take our existing Pascal device and quite easily upgrade it to a digital version. That clip-in reader goes with a box of 20 to a customer, a box of 50. It's low cost, it's disposable, but it provides quantification, it provides e-health traceability, time, location, batch data, the kind of stuff that in home testing at the moment is lacking, and one of the reasons why regulators are not overly keen on self-testing at the moment. So we believe that that's a really valuable platform, as is the new user-friendly app that we're in the process of validating with some partners locally. So we're very excited about those platforms. We think they add enormous utility to our technology and really break down some of the barriers for self-test approval, and further, cement Atomo as a market leader in this space. In terms of capacity, you'll see that is an ongoing process. We started this year with the ability to make about 250,000 devices a month. We're now at 750, and we'll be at more than 1.5 million by 30 June, we believe. So that gives us capacity to meet the demand we're seeing for COVID, which is not unsurprisingly quite significant, but also leaving extra capacity available next year to now bring new OEM customers onto the platform. And we're investing in some process upgrades to our proprietary blister manufacturing machine that runs in the US. We've nearly completed design of an upgraded machine with extra capacity, and we'll be looking to build out our supply chain in the coming year. In terms of strategic priorities for the business, this is the last slide. It's really recapping, I think, on where we think we're going. Continued delivery of OEM contracts. We're really excited about that opportunity to scale quickly in the business. Implementing a US presence to support that. Continuing to launch a number of high-value finished products in emerging segments. Continue to look at expanding our usability expertise beyond blood. So we're looking at nasal and saliva-based tests that we can deliver improved performance on. And we're also now, as I've mentioned, starting to roll out a digital platform that underpins the business, and we're very excited about the growth prospects. We've made a lot of progress in the last 12 months, and we believe there's further progress to be made. And so I'm happy to take any questions you have.
Right, thanks, John, and thanks, Will. Just before we continue, if you just bring your computer a little bit closer to yourselves, as the mic was just a bit soft. But the first question, does your product have a shelf life? Do the tests become inaccurate or unstable after some time?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yes, they do. The devices that we manufacture have a shelf life of 5 years based on the sterility of the lancet. Once they get turned into finished product with a diagnostic strip inside, it's the chemistry on the strip that determines the product shelf life, and that's typically 24 months.
Great. Regarding the Mylan Upjohn merger, will the Mylan Atomo HIV test distribution and expansion agreement need to be renegotiated with the new Viatris company in regards to its terms and rebranding?
No. Well, in terms of commercial terms, there's no expectations of any renegotiation. There will be, I suspect, some adjustments on revised branding for the promotion of the product. I don't think from a regulatory perspective that's an issue at all. The HIV contract stands alone, so it isn't impacted by the merger. We are talking to Mylan about potential other companion diagnostic opportunities that might make sense for us to look to provide for them, given that they now have a pharma merger with a company that has a significant, cupboard of drugs available, and maybe there's some companion opportunities in there. So we see the merger as only being positive.
Great, thanks. Is Mylan, soon to be Viatris, or Atomo going to apply for US FDA approval for the HIV professional and self-test tests in 2021?
I mean, it's an option. One of the reasons that hasn't happened to date is that Mylan typically, although they're US based, they tend to focus in global health markets and they don't have a strong presence in the US directly. So that's not been a core focus for them, which is why we haven't looked to support registration with their product in the US. Now, with the merger, obviously their corporate focus may shift to be less global health focused and more US focused. And then at that stage, obviously, a US product approval might be more attractive for them. So that's an ongoing discussion.
Great, thanks. Can you talk about your IP and IP protection? What stops a competitor from copying your devices?
Yeah, well, we're very bullish about our IP. We were the first company to really come along and say, it's not about the chemistry, it's about the usability. And we were the first company really to try and get broad protection for the integration of a kit down into a single device. So really RP doesn't relate to the diagnostics. In fact, we could take out immunoassay strips and put in microfluidics or biosensors, and our IP sits around that completely separate to the diagnostics. So our IP is based on the integration of functionality to deliver a test. So the controlled delivery of blood, of buffer, the steps we've used to do that in certain sequences, and some process steps around how we make that blister that runs the integrated buffer delivery and makes the whole thing tick. Those patents are granted broadly: US, Europe, India, China, Brazil. We've got a lot of protection in big markets. We've got 4 patent families and a lot of proprietary know-how. So we feel that we're very well protected. We haven't seen any competitor solutions come to market. And as of today, we believe we're the only company in the world that can deliver these types of tests.
Great. Is there an opportunity to offer your device some more standard blood tests, i.e. cholesterol, glucose, blood counts, etc.?
Glucose is very heavily patented, particularly by Roche. So that's a bit of a minefield to try and get into that market. Outside of glucose, there are opportunities. We're looking at a broad range of applications that we can bring to market. Cholesterol has some technical challenges for immunoassay, so it's a difficult one from a diagnostic perspective. We're very interested in cardiology, so troponin and other cardiac markers. But again, the performance has to be equivalent to clinical best practice, and it's hard sometimes to do that with a test that costs $3 to make. So there are some applications we can deliver, and there's probably some that are deliverable with our technology, but we need to upgrade the diagnostic chemistry inside. And we're talking to some US-based sort of startups that are developing some next-gen solutions that we might look to try and license in and upgrade the quality of the performance to be more competitive with some of those lab tests.
Thanks. And regarding the Atomo rapid malaria test, will the company be looking to enter the malaria market also in 2021, 2022?
Yeah, malaria in professional use settings is pretty commoditized. So we sort of pulled back several years back from the broader malaria screening market. We have been in discussions with Access Bio. They were one of the global leaders in malaria and still are. And they're very excited about the opportunity of putting their malaria test into our self-test device and looking at a high premium self-test, that obviously has applications for corporate travelers and expats and those types of higher margin business. So that's an opportunity, but malaria probably wouldn't be one of our immediate core focuses, but certainly, we're looking at it.
Great. And what's the average device selling price?
It's always difficult to talk about specifics around pricing, but I think, if you have a look through our recent announcements, particularly our year-end presentation, you can see we've broken down our revenue by COVID, by HIV, and by other OEM, and you can see we've said the revenue and the number of units. So you can kind of work out from that. That's a good proxy for getting to unit pricing if someone's looking to get to the bottom of that.
But our blended gross margin across the business is 60%, and we're confident we can keep it there as we expand across different applications.
Great, thanks. And just in terms of the production capacity, and that looks like it's significantly increasing into next year. There's a number of agreements that are expected to come online that sort of coincide with that. Mm-hmm. Is there an understanding of what the revenue opportunity could be once they come online and you can fulfill that capacity?
Yeah, I mean, we're very excited about the opportunity to fill out that capacity. I mean, we're currently utilizing a small number of units in a monthly capacity, and that's increasing each month. And we're starting to see now with the year-end results in the first 4C how that starts to step up. If you extrapolate that out on a 3 to 4 times multiple, you start to get a number that we're very excited about. It's important to note that those 3 big markets that we've recently announced agreements or approval for, being North America, India, with DVOC, and our own approvals in Australia. None of those 3 markets have started to generate revenue, so we expect that all to be growth in the second half of the year. And then beyond that, we've got the OEM opportunities that we expect to start coming through with revenue in FY22. So we're expecting to build from there. Yeah, I think there's plenty of opportunity, and the demand is there, and we just need to make sure that we keep the capacity ahead of the curve in terms of being able to meet those orders.
Right, and just an extension to that in terms of the longer term demand for COVID antigen and antibody tests. Can you talk through some real sort of examples as to, obviously COVID's not, there may be a vaccine, there may not be a vaccine, but it's going to be around for some time. Can you talk to what potential sort of sales that there could be?
Yeah, we can. I mean, I'll start by saying that our crystal balls no better than anyone else's in some ways in this. I mean, we are quite plugged into the manufacturing and vaccine development, but there's uncertainty there. Certainly in the short term, over the next 12 months, there's huge demand for antigen tests. Antigen tests are cheaper and much quicker to deploy than lab PCR, and I think antigen tests will start to replace in some segments PCR testing that's been the gold standard. So we're seeing immediate demand there. Antibody testing is very valuable for management of populations, for assessing where the disease has been, who might have some level of antibody resistance, which nobody said there's immunity specifically, but there's been 40 million people infected and less than 20 reinfected. So there's clearly some level of infection resistance with antibodies. So I think that's going to be an ongoing program. As vaccines start to get rolled out, we believe there's some expectation that antibody testing will be used to triage and prioritize who needs to get the vaccine. And I think there might also be some confirmation of vaccine effectiveness, and that can only really be done by, again, measuring an antibody response. So we think there's, a 2-year, possibly 3-year market for antigen testing, and probably, a 3 to 5 year market for antibody testing.
Right. And just in terms of the production scale up through 2021 of around 6.3 million devices a month, will this be sufficient and quick enough to deliver the various COVID-19 supply needs? And since the company...
So that's 6 million quarterly. So that's a 25 million per annum annualized number. Well, we hope it will be. I mean, there's a limit to how quickly we can bring on modular capacity. We have to build the lines, we have to qualify them, we have to submit dossiers to the regulators so that those lines can be brought into approved production standard. So, there's a process there. We've done it. We're good at it. We did it, quickly in the last 6 months. So we're building out as quickly as we can. We do have arrangements with certain customers that envisage potential tech transfer at certain volumes so that our customers can start manufacturing our cassettes under license, and we provide them the blisters so we can meter how many they're using and also, generate that royalty revenue. So I think there is options for us to expand well beyond that 25 million. Whether Atomo does all of that organically or whether it outsources some of that through tech transfer, we're looking at those options, and it may be that there's a bit of a combination of both.
Right. Next question was, please state how much money you made from HIV Core Business in 2020 compared to 2019.
I don't know if we have that number off the top of our heads. We can certainly...
That's right. We can come back on that one later.
I would say that there has been growth. I can't put a percentage number on it, but we have to remember that we only really signed the deal with Mylan 2 years ago. We've spent the last 18 months supporting their product registration in the first tranche of countries. We've now got approval and launch in more than 15 approximately. They had a bit of a hiatus through the sort of March to June period as some of the public health tenders, particularly in developing markets, kind of not were cancelled, but were delayed as the priorities naturally switched to managing COVID. We're seeing some of those rebirth, and we're starting to see some increased demand, in the last quarter. So I think that's catching up again, and we're certainly seeing Mylan as a long-term growth opportunity, but it's certainly not growing at the kind of quarterly rates that we're seeing for COVID. I think HIV is more of a slow burn than a sort of cash cow.
But Simon, I guess just to put some flesh on that, so we did about 540,000 total revenue in FY19 as HIV started to roll out, very early stages of the rollout, and also some of the OEM contracts started to deliver. So that was partly HIV and partly OEM. In the 5.4 million of revenue for the full year FY20, 3.4 of that was COVID, and the rest was HIV and OEM. I think it was 1.2 and 0.8. So we've kind of done probably triple the revenue for HIV in FY20 versus FY19. And we're starting to see some pickup in this current quarter. So as John says, that's more slow and steady compared to COVID, but it is a factor of the rollout across different geographies, as well as, you know, the tender business that John described.
And the other point I'd make is as Milestones start to roll out in tranches 2 and 3, we go from 10 countries to 20 countries to 30 countries, and obviously there's a step up in volume as more countries come into the supply channel. So we do expect to see some solid growth.
Right, and just in terms of within the quarterly, you mentioned Access Buyers placed an order for around 260,000 devices. Is that a pre-order or is that?
Yeah, so the way that contract works, we're essentially partners. So we send our devices to them, they put the test in and then package it up and then sell it to their customers. At the point they sell it to their customers, that's when we recognise the revenue. So as I say, we're essentially partners. Our name's on the box alongside theirs and we're sharing the revenue. We do have a minimum floor price in there as well, so we're guaranteed a minimum amount per unit. And then we also have the shortfall fee if they don't reach that 2 million units sales between now and 30 September next year. So they've ordered those devices ahead of the FDA approval on the assumption that they're going to get the approval. And so they can start to build products so that they're ready when the approval comes to immediately go to market.
But sure. Revenue for those units will be in the second half of the year once it's actually booked as a sold product.
And just in terms of the FDA process and the approval, what's the latest update there or expectation?
Well, the normal turnaround time is less than 3 months. They submitted, a month ago. So, we would be hopeful of an approval by the end of the year, but the FDA are very busy. So, that's not guaranteed. I think Access Buyer are confident enough to, pull forward that container, 2 containers worth to get ready. So I think, things are on track, but as to the exact time, I'm not really in a position to say with any sense of sort of certainty.
Completely understand. And just in terms of the Access Buyer, can you just help us understand what the revenue share split is there?
Yeah, to a certain extent. So as I say, there is a split between them and us in terms of the revenue that kind of reflects the time, energy, cost and effort that's gone into it from both sides. So really for us, it's almost the equivalent of a normal OEM deal in terms of what we have to do. So you wouldn't expect the share of the revenue to be significantly higher than it would be in a normal OEM contract. So it's fair to say they get more of a split than Atomo does, but that's a fair reflection of the cost of go-to-market, the cost of regulatory approvals, and all the other kind of downstream activities. They've actually got to produce the finished product, package it up and sell it. And so that's why the split kind of is the way it is. But having said that, we've got a minimum floor price at which they've got to sell the finished product that delivers us the same or better than we would get in our contract with NG, for example. So it's still a 70+% margin type business for us.
Got it. Do you have a recycle path for your used devices?
No, unfortunately, that's not feasible. We have looked into it. The cost of using regrind plastic is prohibitive, particularly for global health markets where cost is critical, and also because the devices have blood on them post-use. They are considered biohazard waste and are not eligible for recycling.
All good. How are you looking to potentially de-risk any supply chain disruption since there is only a single manufacturing South Africa site to supply global agreements, i.e. is Atomo looking to open additional manufacturing sites or license out to partners?
Yeah, both actually, I think is the answer. So just to be clear, the South African facility only manufactures our HIV product. We have supply partner IDE, who are an Australian company. They have a facility, a joint venture facility in China, and they also run a facility in the US that has our wholly owned machine for blister production in it. So we are looking to obviously continue to expand the China option because it's there, it's quick to ramp up and it's cost effective, but we're also expanding our capabilities in South Africa so we can manufacture more than HIV only. And we're also actively looking at a North American footprint. We've got some sort of discussions underway around a sort of San Diego, Tijuana style assembly process for North American supply chain customers. And as mentioned previously, 1 or 2 customers have indicated a tech transfer interest. So I think there's plenty of de-risking of the supply chain so that we're not dependent on any one, facility for global production.
In addition to that, Simon, as our production capacity expands, we're trying to get ahead of it. We should be able to build up some more stock so that we can maintain a stock buffer as well to give us some more redundancy in the event that there is some supply interruptions. You've got to trade off carrying that working capital versus the risk, and you've got to trade off, having more than one facility just for supply chain risk. And if you can kind of mitigate that by having a buffer of supply, then that's in the short term a good solution and a cost-effective solution.
Yeah.
Problem at the moment, obviously, is we've got to build out that capacity to have that sort of additional stock on hand, and at the moment we're building everything we can to supply into our customers. So as the expansion comes through, we'll be able to, I guess, have a bit better control over that kind of stock buffer.
Yeah, and I think the wisdom of doing that was proven. I think with COVID, we now have the balance sheet to allow us to build to stock rather than build to order. When we got the inbound inquiry from NG, we were able to validate their strip on our existing HIV device, and we were able to divert the 300,000 cassettes that we had as sort of backup inventory for Milan over to France, and we were able to turn that inquiry into a contract and have containers on the water within 10 weeks. And I think that's pretty unprecedented, and that was primarily because we had that buffer stock available ready to go the next day.
Great. Thanks again so much for joining us, guys. Obviously, there's a number of catalysts coming up in terms of potential FDA approval, scale up of capacity, and delivering on those contracts, which is going to result in what we hope is a huge second half. So all the best. And if there's any other questions, please feel free to send them through to the register email address of mine. But thanks very much again, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.